I, Pa Habib Mbai,
I, Pa Habib Mbai,
do swear that
I will speak the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
You may be seated, please. Good afternoon, Mr. Witness.
Good afternoon, sir.
Welcome to the TRRC.
Thank you for welcoming me.
I hope you have been treated to TRRC lunch, and you
Very
are
well.
now fed enough to be willing to proceed.
I'm strong to go on.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. First of all, thank you really for your willingness to appear before the Commission.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, may I say that this witness is a very important one for the TRRC in the sense that he had occupied certain important positions in the security forces, which made him privy to a lot of the issues that would be of concern to the TRRC. His appearance today is not to talk about all the things that he knows about, violations of rights, or all the things that are of interest to the TRRC which he knows about, but rather to deal with few discrete issues, mainly the murder of Usman Korosise and the investigations that he carried out during that time. But we are working with him, and hopefully in the not too distant future, we would call him again to come and talk about other issues of interest to the TRRC. That is an understanding we have reached with the witness. Is that right, Mr. Witness?
That's right.
Thank you. Perhaps, Mr. Witness, you should draw the microphone closer to you so that, and maybe amplify your voice as well, project so that we can hear you more clearly.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Witness, your testimony today, I would want us to deal with just a few issues, like I have mentioned. First, your biographical information. Some of the things that happened during the July 22nd, 1994 coup d'etat, your activities during that period, and your interaction with the members of the council who became the government afterwards. The assignments you were given during the time or during the early days of the junta, culminating to your transfer from Banjul to Mansa Konko, and also arrangements within the police regarding the investigations of certain sensitive dossiers, like the Special Investigations Unit. We would want to know how that came into being, who were the personnel, what were the responsibilities they had, and their reporting lines. But, and also finally, the most important issue that you were called to testify about for this particular hearing is the death of Usman Korosise. What you heard prior to the event, the information you received from informants, your personal, your investigations, and what happened as a result of the investigations you were carrying out. These are the topics I would wish to discuss with you in this hearing. You are able to talk about them?
Yes.
So, as we've already met, I had introduced myself to you before. Esa Mbaifal is my name. My role today is to help you narrate your story to the Commission, correct?
Yes.
Good. So, Mr. Witness, can you kindly tell us your full names, please?
My name's Pa Habib Mbai.
Mr. Mai, are you known by another name which excludes your formal name?
I am known as Pambai and also as CMC, meaning Crime Management Coordinator. That was my designation in the
Why
police.
are you known as CMC?
Because I was holding that position in the police when I was in active service.
Many people must have held that position before you and certainly after you, but they're not called CMC. Why were you called CMC?
Because I was the one that held it longer than any other person that held that office.
So in fact, in the minds of members of the security forces, you identify with that position.
Exactly.
And that's why they call you by that name.
That is the
Affectionately.
Exactly.
Thank you. Can you tell us your date of birth, please?
I was born August 30th, 1947,
Where about?
in Banjul,
Where did you go to school?
Serekunda Primary School. Then it wasn't a primary school, it was called Serekunda Mohammedan School.
And briefly tell us your educational background.
Well, I started my education background at Serekunda when I was 6 years old. That was in 1953. Then I was promoted through the classes up to standard 7. Then we don't have primaries. We have infant 1, 2, 3, and then from standard 1 to 7. But in my case, when I attained standard 7, then we were supposed to open the Laterkunda Secondary Modern School. Then they completed the construction of that school. So then some others are already promoted to come to standard 7, and we had to wait. So for that, an extra class was created, standard 8, and we were promoted to standard 8 just to wait for the completion of the construction and the opening of Laterkunda so that we go and open that school. So we went to Laterkunda, then we spent only 6 months, and we sat for the secondary 4 examination. Then from there, my father wanted me to have a trade, a profession. So he recommended motor mechanic. So I was given to one Mr. Cham. He was a renowned mechanic in Serekunda. So I had the training for 3 years with Mr. Cham, from 93 when I finished my schooling to 1966. Yes, from 63 to 66. After that, then my father wanted me to join the police. Then I was enlisted as a mechanic. But then it coincided with some other people that were enlisted, and they were supposed to go for the training at the police depot. So I was asked to join them. I said, but I am enlisted as a mechanic. Why should I do the police training? He said, okay, it's good for you to do it. It will benefit you in future. So I agreed. I went to that training. We were there for 6 months. We had 3 exams, 2 interim exams, and a final one. So it so happened that I took first in all the exams. So when we graduated and then we dispersed, then I was not allowed to go to the garage. So they decided that I should be posted to the police station in Banjul to become a diary keeper. I was there for 6 months, and then I was posted to the special branch of the police. Then there was no NIA, there was no NSS. Like the intelligence service was under the police force called the special branch. And we were very few, we were not even more than 20 people, you see. So I was there until 1977. Then I personally decided to quit that office. Well, why that is because I read a book entitled Dark Days in Ghana, written by Kwame Nkrumah, when he was overthrown, and the special branch was in trouble. The government that was overthrown blamed them, and the coupists also blamed them, so they were all arrested.
So you thought special branch was poison chalice?
Exactly. So I decided to quit that office.
You ran away from that.
So from that office, then I was posted at Serekunda, then Basse. Then just let's cut it there, because I don't think there is need to go through all these things. So
Ultimately, you became CMC, Crime Management Coordinator, correct?
yes, from Basse, I was actually in the uniform branch, but I used to help them when they have cases to investigate, you see. And then that was where I impressed my boss, then Bakari Bojang. He is now in Birkama. Then he recommended that I should be posted to the CID. So they brought me to Banjul, and then I was posted to the CID. That is how I became CID. So in 1989,
You said the CID would be Criminal Investigation Department.
Yes. Then in 1989, I was sent to undergo a course in Nigeria at the Police Detective College in Enugu, Nigeria. Then I was there for 3 months. When I came back, they posted me to Bundung. From Bundung, then I went to Banjul as the OC Serious Crime. Then I was there for a few months, then I became the CMC.
What were your responsibilities as CMC?
I had a lot of units under me as Crime Management Coordinator. That was the Child Welfare Unit was under me. The Drug Squad then was under the police. It was also under me. Then I had the prosecution section under me, and so many other sections actually.
How about serious crimes?
Serious crime was under me, of course. Yes, that was the CID.
And what were your responsibilities as CMC?
I was responsible for investigation of all atrocities that are committed. I should lead all investigations of crimes that are committed. That was one of my mandates.
In 1994, what was your position?
I was still the CMC, the Crime Management Coordinator, in '94.
Do you recall July 22nd, 1994?
Yes, I do. That morning, I left home. I drove to Banjul to go to work.
At around what time?
I left home around 7. Then I must have reached Banjul around 7:30 or 7:45. So I parked and alighted from my vehicle. I was going up to my office. So there is a corridor.
Where was your office located?
At the police headquarters in Banjul. You see, then it was in the 2nd floor of the building. So if you want to go to my office, you have to pass through a corridor. And that corridor had windows. You see, so when I looked over the window, I saw that all the staff were gathered at the courtyard behind the building. So I was wondering what must have happened. So I went into my office, placed my things on my table, and then I walked down to join them. When I read them, I asked Mr. Chongan to tell me what the matter was all about.
Mr. Chongan, what was his first name, if you can recall?
I think, is it Ibrahim Chongan, I think.
What was his position in the police at the time?
He was the AIG operations.
Proceed, please.
AIG operations. That was his position in the police.
Proceed, please.
So when I asked him, he said, well, they've got information that some soldiers were marching towards Banjul, and they were heavily armed, and they didn't know why they were doing that. So some of them said it could have been an exercise, military exercise, which was announced 2 or 3 days earlier that there was going to be a military exercise. But then I said to him, it would be useless for us to stand here thinking whether it was this or that. I think the best thing that we could do is to drive to the bridge where these people are, so that on the ground we would exactly know what's happening. So he entirely agreed with me. So he jumped into his vehicle. I followed him with mine.
At this stage, were you aware of any meeting that had occurred at the police headquarters by the senior officials before your arrival at the police?
Well, what I could say is that I found them at the courtyard, as I said, and I wouldn't call that a meeting. Could have been a meeting because everybody was gathered there. They converged there, and I found them discussing about what was going on.
Apart from Mr. Ibrahim Chongan, AIG Operations,
Yes.
Who else amongst the top bra of the police do you remember to have been present?
The IGP was there, Mr. Jain.
What was his full name?
You know, the problem with police is they are more concerned with surnames than first name.
Tell us the name that you know.
President.
Would that be Pasala Jang?
Pasala Jan, exactly.
You're agreeing with me that it's Pasala Jang, right?
Exactly, that's his name.
So who else was present?
There was Mambuyang, Mambuna Bojang.
Yes.
He was the OC serious crime at the time. There was also many senior officers actually. Everybody working in the headquarters was gathered at that place on that very day, all the officers.
So after your conversation with Mr. Chongan, he got into his vehicle. You also did what?
I got into mine,
and
I followed him. We drove to the Denton Bridge. So we parked our vehicles at the beginning of the bridge, the Banjul side, and then we started walking towards the Serekunda end of the bridge. When we arrived at the middle of the bridge, I looked back, I saw Samsidin Sar coming towards us. So we stood and waited for him. When he arrived, Chongan asked him to go back.
Which Samsidin Sar are you referring to?
He was a soldier, an army officer.
What was his rank at the time?
Actually, that's a problem. I don't know soldier's rank.
Okay, proceed, please.
Yes. So when Chongan asked him to go back, he started pleading with him that they are also in the same dilemma that we were in, that he wanted to go to these people to know exactly what was happening. But still Chongan insisted because he told him that I am the senior man here, so you have to obey my instructions. And my instructions are that you should go back. But then...
So that was Chongan telling Samsidin Sar
yes,
that he, Chongan, was the senior man here,
exactly,
and he was giving instructions, and Samsidin Sar was obliged to obey.
Exactly.
That's your testimony.
Exactly.
Proceed.
But then he continued to plead. Then I intervened. I told Chongan to allow him to go. So far as they are in the same dilemma with us, what we are here to find out is the same thing that he is here for. So then Chongan agreed. The three of us walked towards the end of the bridge. At the end of the bridge, we found Captain Suare. He was the one at the end of the bridge with his men.
Of which force, Captain Suare? Which force did he belong to, if you can recall?
Suare, if I remember rightly, if my memory serves me well, I think he was with the police at that point in time, if I remember rightly.
Do you recall which unit within the police?
He was the intervention unit, police intervention unit, known as the PIU.
Well, units in the police have gone through several changes. Maybe different wine being put in the same bottle on several occasions. At this stage, I don't think it was PIU. Do you recall the amalgamation of remnants of the gendarmerie into the police? Do you recall that?
Yes.
Do you recall the name of the unit that was designated for the remnants of the gendarmerie that were brought into the police? Do you recall? Do you recall TSG, Tactical Support Group?
Tactical Support Group. Exactly. That was the name given to them, to that group. Tactical Support Group.
So your testimony is that Suare at the time was with the Tactical Support Group, which was part of the police.
Exactly.
Correct. And when you saw Suare there, what happened?
Well, I approached and advised him that he should try to get reinforcement, because what I saw those people had at the time, the type of weapons they had, very sophisticated weapons. I said, I don't think you can hold them. So it's better for you to try and get reinforcement. That was what I told him. Then after that,
At that point, where was AIG Chongan?
He was with me. He was there standing.
As far
He
as
was telling Suare that he must never allow these people to cross the bridge. Cost him whatever it may cost him. He should not allow them to cross the bridge.
Did Suare say anything to the order given by Chongan and also to the recommendation that you made?
Chongan actually Suare actually agreed that he would do as he was told by Chongan. He would never allow them. You see, so that was the time. Chongan himself, at one stage, he shot at them. They retaliated. Then that was the time I entered my car, because I advised him not to do that. I told him, you don't have to shoot these people, because what they have, compared with what you have, it would be suicidal for you to shoot at them. So I entered my car and returned to the headquarters. Later he was brought to the headquarters. He did not come, he was brought to the headquarters, to his office. And then he lied down on the floor, and then his office fan was open. It was put on for the air to blow him. That was what happened to him. So we were there until in the afternoon, maybe around 3 to 4 o'clock, everybody disappeared. The headquarters was totally empty. So
when you left the bridge, you left Chongan behind?
I left him behind.
Okay. So you went back to your office. You were there until what time, you said?
Around 3 to 4 o'clock.
What happened after that?
Then I went home. I went straight home. The following morning.
At this stage, before you left for home, did you see any members, any soldiers come to the police station?
No, it was the following morning when I came to work. I found the station was occupied by army officers.
So that first day, July 22nd, up to the time you left your office, you did not see any soldiers occupy the premises?
No. I did not see anybody.
Okay. Proceed with your story, please.
Then the following morning when I came to work, I saw army officers occupying the police headquarters. They were standing at the entrance, allowing nobody to enter. They did not allow any officer to enter. So I stood there, trying to think of what I should do. So abruptly, I thought I should go to the State House and put some sense into the minds of these people, into the heads of these people that are there, the junta. So I drove my car. I was accompanied by one of my juniors called Jindo Sise. Then I drove into the State House through the back door, the Marina Parade door. So when I arrived, I alighted from my car and walked towards them.
Where were they at the time?
At the State House.
Where in the State House?
See, if you get into the State House from the Marina Parade door, the moment you arrive at the main building, if you look on your left, there was some kind of a round hut, open one. That was where they were seated. And that was Jame.
Jame who? Which Jame?
Yaya Jame was there. Captain Suare himself, whom I left at the village on the previous day, was also there. There was Edward Singate, Samsidin Sar, and Abu Jang. Abu Jang was the only police officer among them. Then seated down, not very far from them on a bench, there was Babukar Jata and Modu Baji. They were the two that were seated somewhere at a distance on a bench. So Jeng got up from his seat, and then I sat there.
Why did he do that?
I was his senior, he knows me.
So he was extending you some courtesy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Proceed, please.
Yes. So when I sat down, they wanted to know why I was there. But before that, Samsidin Sar was introducing these people to me. Then he said, this is Yaya Jammeh, and this is Edward Singate. You know Suare. Of course, you also know Abu Jeng, and you know me. So when he finished this introduction, Edward abruptly took over and said to me directly, we have taken over this country. I did not say anything. I said to them, why I am here is because the jubilation in town, the actions of the soldiers, and the police stations that they are occupying and other important offices in this country would not help you. Because the thing is, people will fear, and peace can never come back until and unless these people left those places and returned back to barracks. And that is what will help you people. That was what I told them. Then I saw Jammeh's face brighten. And then he called two soldiers, asked them to escort me to the depot and fuel my vehicle. I was given a full tank, and what they wanted me to do is to go around and get police officers to come back to work. So I was unable to see anybody. So I had to go home. Then the following day, when I came to work, the officers were no longer there. Then officers began to come to work. This is what happened on the 23rd of July.
In the meantime, did you see Pasalajan,
No,
then IGP?
He wasn't there at all. He wasn't there. I went to his office, he wasn't there. In fact, at that point in time, there was one Mudunjai. I think he's a brother to Ndaunjai. He came to the office and said he was the new IGP, and he wanted the key to Pasalajan's office. I just left him there and walked to my office because I never wanted to participate, because these people took over the previous day. Then the next day you come and say you are the new IGP. I didn't know where that was coming from. You see? So
Did he show you a letter?
he didn't show any letter, nothing, absolutely. Nothing, absolutely.
And
But then he was unable to get access to the office.
how about on Monday, 25th July, 1994?
25th July 1994, I came to work, still the IGP wasn't there. So I decided to drive to the State House to look for him, because he was someone who was very close to me. We were actually friends. Before he even joined the police force, he was working with the cooperative department at that time. So I went to the State House to look for him. So I was only able to ask only one person that I knew, and that was Lantom Wongtamba. I asked him if the IGP was there with them. He said no, the IGP wasn't there. So I returned to my office and sat down. Then, after some time, the IGP appeared. We saw him
On that day or some other time?
I think it was on that same Monday.
Proceed, please.
He returned to his office, you see. So that was it. That was how he came back.
Do you know what happened after his return to his office?
After his return to his office, I think it must have been on Monday or Tuesday, some soldiers came to arrest them. He was arrested and taken away.
Who
Then
do
they were
you
looking-
mean when you say them?
That was Pasa Rajai, that was Chongan. So Chongan was nowhere to be seen. But then there was information that he was somewhere in Tobacco Road. I don't know how they were able to get him arrested. But Pasala was arrested at the headquarters and taken away. So it was afterwards that we got information that Chongan was also arrested and taken to Mile 2 prison.
You were not present when he was arrested?
No, I wasn't there. I wasn't there.
His
But when Pasala was arrested, I was there. But when Chongan was arrested, I don't even know how he was arrested and where he was arrested.
All right. Proceed, please.
Yes.
Mr. Chongan's version, of course, is that he was arrested at the police headquarters on that Monday.
Could be. I know Press was arrested in my presence, but with Chongan, actually, I don't know. That's the truth.
All right, let's proceed. So, Press was arrested on Monday, and what happened after that?
Now, I think few days after, there was an office which was established. How it was established, I didn't know.
Do you know the name of the office?
The office was called Special Investigation Unit. That was the name they gave to that office.
Within which?
The headquarters.
Which establishment?
The police headquarters there.
This Special Investigations Unit, was it under the purview of the CMC?
It should have been, but it wasn't.
Why wasn't it? Or first question, why it should have been part of CMC?
Because I was, as CMC, it was part of my responsibility to oversee any kind of investigation that is supposed to happen throughout the whole country.
And the SIU was supposed to be carrying out investigations, correct? And by extension, it was supposed to be under your department.
Exactly. But it wasn't under me.
Do you
I
know
did not
why?
even know when it was established. I just went to work, and then I saw them in that office.
Who is them?
That was Baba Dinding Jowate. And
Could you say the name again?
Baba Dinding Jowate, that's how I know him. He was then a cadet officer in the police.
Do you know whether he has any other name?
Well, they call him Jobate, some call him Baba Dinding Jobate, and I know at one time he was the Minister of Justice and Attorney General.
Lamin Jobate?
Lamin Jobate, exactly.
That's the name you agree with?
Yes, Lamin.
Okay. And who else?
And Fude Bari.
And what were they in relation to the SIU?
Well, they were the people who occupied that office, and they were investigating matters that happened during the people that were arrested by the junta. They sometimes go to Mile 2, bring in people like President Keba Sisi. At one time, they brought them to the police headquarters to be interrogated. I was informed about it when I was in my office, and I decided to go, walk to that office to go and see these two people. Because Keba was the one that trained me in the special branch. I had that relationship with him. So I went to the office, I found them seated on the floor. I wasn't happy with that, actually.
Why weren't you happy with that?
These are people who were our bosses in the different institutions. That is the police and the NSS. Then it was the NSS. Keba was the head of the NSS as Director General. President was the head of the police as Inspector General. So if I see these people being treated the way they were treated, definitely I wasn't happy, and I told them.
Who did you tell?
Jobate and Fode. I said, this is not done. I don't think this is the way you should treat these people. At least they were our bosses. Treat them with respect.
So
that
you
was what I told them.
that
I said to them, we have to be very careful. This thing is happening, but nobody knows the future. These are people who could bounce back to occupy their positions again. So we have to be mindful of this, because nobody knows what would happen tomorrow. And that was what exactly happened.
Before we get to that, you're suggesting here that the person you call Baba Dinding Jobate or Lamin Jobate, who subsequently became Minister of Justice,
Yes.
and Mr. Fode Barry, they were maltreating these arrested officers who were hitherto their superiors in the forces, being Pasala Jain, IGP, former IGP.
Exactly.
And
What I saw,
Kebasise.
yes, what I saw that day, actually, I didn't like it. And I wouldn't want anybody to treat me that way, especially somebody who was working under me. Instead of making me sit on a chair, you asked me to sit on the floor. Everybody was seated on a chair. These two people were seated on the floor. So obviously,
common criminals.
exactly. I don't think
Or even worse
anyone
than
would be
common
happy to be
criminals.
treated in the way they did to them.
So tell us more about that office. This was a recent creation soon after the coup d'etat, correct? Could you state your answer through the microphone? It does not record gesticulations.
Okay. Say that again.
Could you indicate your answer by saying something instead of nodding?
I want you to repeat
The
that
question is, this unit was a recent creation soon
Exactly.
after the coup d'etat.
Exactly.
You don't know how the office was created,
I don't.
even though it was supposed to be an
Under-
office under your section or under your department. You did not know anything about it.
Absolutely nothing.
Were you informed that two of your subordinates were designated to be running that office?
No, sir. I wasn't.
Were you briefed as to what they were supposed to do?
Nobody told me anything.
Do you
about
in
that.
fact know where their instructions was coming from?
I didn't know.
In
I didn't
terms
know.
of
What I can say is the informations that I got that they were asked to establish that office by the junta. And this is what they were telling people. And one had to at least believe it because these were very powerful people.
what do you mean by that? They couldn't have been more powerful than the CMC.
People feared them. I, as the CMC, was supposed to carry out all these things. All the things that they were doing, I was the one who was supposed to be doing it. But the fact is that I have never been informed about the creation of that office, and nobody told me anything about it. Not the IGP, not the junta, nobody.
At this stage, who was the IGP?
You know, when Press was arrested, it was this Jibril Juf who was brought to take over that office, the office of the IGP.
Which Jibril Juf? Would it be Kapi or another Jibril?
No. Kapi and Jibril Juf are different.
Kapi would be Dudu Juf.
Dudu Juf, yes. Kapi would be Dudu
So
Juf.
this
This
is
guy is
Jibril
Jibril Juf from Kolori.
That's right. So you indicated that these two guys were very powerful. Could you expatiate on that? We want to have an idea what your basis for saying that they were very powerful, what were the things they were doing to suggest that they were very powerful.
Okay, like for instance, I was the CMC. Everything that they were doing should have been done by me or me instructing them to do it. But all these things did not happen. And nobody has ever told me about the existence of or the creation of the office. And they never reported to me. All that they were doing, they were reporting to maybe somewhere else, not to me. I didn't know anything about it.
Let us not speculate, Mr. Mbai, and tell us what you know, and call a spade a spade.
Like for instance, if somebody can order for a person to be brought from prisons, and that guy is escorted to prisons to the police to be interrogated by these people. So obviously I could call that powerful.
What were the reporting lines for these two individuals?
Nobody knows, to be quite frank with you. They have never reported.
Mr. Mbai, wasn't it the case that they were reporting directly to Yahya Jammeh?
That could have been the case, of course.
Could have or would have, or was the case?
I would say that that would have been the case.
Thank you very much. And you were telling us that these things they were doing. What things do you have in mind?
Well, bringing people for interrogation from all over, because I have seen them brought Press Kebasisi from prisons. They also brought one Mr. Glenn and so many other people to that office for interrogation. So obviously, I thought these people definitely, they must have caught their instruction from somewhere. So that was the reason I decided to just keep quiet over it.
By saying that they must have got their instructions from somewhere, quote unquote, you leaving us with a gray area. We want that gray area.
Of course, from the State House.
From the State House.
From the State House.
That is what you're suggesting.
That is what I'm
From the President. That is what you suggest.
Exactly.
And therefore, that's the reason why they were powerful.
Exactly.
And that's the reason why these two subordinates were more powerful than the CMC.
Very well.
Would you
Very
say again?
well. That's the truth.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
Good. You are talking about how they maltreated Mr. Pasa Lajang and Mr. Keba Sise. Was this a modus operandi?
Well, I would say
of
yes.
that unit?
I would say yes.
So your suggestion is that people who came to that unit were in fact mistreated?
Exactly. You see, as a detective, you don't have to maltreat people to get things out of them. It is absolutely not correct. You don't beat people, you don't slap people, you don't even insult people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbai. We would come back to these issues at a later stage. This is perhaps just the introduction,
Okay.
But we would come back to it. After July 22nd, 1994, you were given particular assignments by the new government to search premises, certain premises. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I was one day called and assigned to go and search the house of Mr. O.J. Jallo.
O.J. Jallo, what is his
Omar
full
Amadou
name?
Jallo.
Yes.
He was, at that time, he used to be the Minister of Agriculture in the First Republic. And in the government of Barrow, he was also Minister of Agriculture. I think he testified in this commission here. He gave his testimony here. That was the person they wanted me to search his house, but I refused to do it. They wanted my reasons of refusal. I told them that this guy is my childhood friend. We grew up together, and we are close friends. So you don't expect me to go to his house. His family looking at me, to searching his premises. I cannot do that. And they want us, what they wanted us to look for was foreign account numbers and documents relating to properties that they own. So I said I cannot do that. And apart from OJ being my childhood friend, his wife is a sister to my closest friend ever. So I said I would not do it. They were not happy with that, of course, but so I went with my team to Alaji Asise's compound. We found him there. Then he was living somewhere in Pipeline. That's the place occupied by this office. How do you call them? This office that deal with jobs now. I cannot remember the name of that office. They are still there, actually. So on arrival at Mr. Asise's compound, I told the boys to wait for me. I asked them to wait at the sitting room, and I went with him into his bedroom. Then I explained to him why we were there. So he said we were welcome to search his place. And then when I came out, then I asked the boys to search. So they only searched the sitting room, and then I asked them to stop, and then we returned back to the office.
Didn't that have been a dereliction of duty, Mr. Mbai?
Pardon?
Wouldn't that have been a dereliction of duty? You
No,
were asked to search.
We did search.
Yes, you searched only the living room.
Yes, only the living room.
How about the bedrooms? They were not to be
We
searched?
definitely did not search the bathroom.
Were they not to be searched?
Well, we are supposed to search the whole premises.
You treated him
The
with
truth
favor.
is- Not actually with favor, but I gave him that respect that is due to him.
But that respect was a favor. It was not a respect accorded to him by the orders you were given.
Well, I agree with you there.
Let's proceed. Did you make a report?
Yes, I did make a report.
To who did you report?
I reported to the IGP.
What
He was the one that gave me the assignment.
And what was your report?
That we went to Mr. Sis's compound, we searched all over, and then we did not see anything. That is of interest regarding what they asked us to search for.
And what happened after that?
Well, I think about a week or two after that, I was transferred to Mansakonko.
Was that a promotion?
It wasn't a promotion, of course. It was some kind of demotion.
It was punishment.
Punishment, yes.
Why do you think you were being punished this time around?
Because of my reaction towards the assignment given to me to go and search OJ's house, which I refused.
And possibly also your failure to completely and thoroughly execute the order you were given.
They did not know about that.
Okay.
They could have
That's
known
what you
maybe
think. Okay. And for how long were you posted at Mansakonko?
I was there for 3 months.
And then what happened after that?
And then I was recalled and my office was restored to me. Then I was recalled to Banjul.
Do you know why you were recalled?
Because they started having problems of solving atrocities that were being committed, crimes that were being committed. It was difficult for them to solve those problems by way of investigation. So they had to call me back to Banjul, and then I was given back my office.
Do you recall what time of the year this took place?
It was around December.
Around December.
December, yeah.
All right. And this December 1994?
94, yes.
Okay. And in June of 1995, did you hear any rumors surrounding the work of the then Minister of Finance, Usman Korosise?
Of course I did. What happened is there were speculations, or rumors, in other words, that the minister was supposed to give a budget speech to the parliament. And then there were some discrepancies, financial discrepancies, caused by the junta, which they never wanted the minister to disclose to the parliament. They asked him not to do that, but he insisted. All these are from information that I got. He insisted that he must disclose this to parliament. Now, this is somebody, I don't know him that much, but from what people are saying about Kuro, he's somebody who conquered fear, I can say. He conquered fear. He doesn't fear anything.
He was
Whatever
fearless.
he feels that he should do, he would do it. Come what may. He was that type of person.
Fearless and stubborn.
Exactly. Fearless and stubborn.
So the information that you received at the time was that he wanted to disclose financial irregularities or discrepancies involving the junta to parliament. And the members of the junta wanted him stopped.
They didn't like that to happen.
They did not like that.
No.
Did you hear that from one person or from several quarters?
No, this was something that being discussed everywhere, at all quarters. People were talking about it everywhere.
It was rife, pretty much. And what happened afterwards? Did you hear anything? Did you receive any other information pertaining to that affected this particular individual?
Yes. One night I was asleep, and around 1 o'clock going to 2 o'clock in the night, my phone rang. Then I woke up. I picked up my phone, and then I just opened the door and walked out of the house because I never wanted to disturb my family. They were all sleeping. Outside, then I answered the phone. The caller was one Mr. Cham. I know him as Cham Kasarina because he once owned a nightclub in Fajara called Kasarina. So that was the name I used to call him, Cham Kasarina. But he is somebody who was very close to me, and sometimes he would help me do my job. He wasn't a police officer, of course, but he was somebody who had local knowledge of the greater Banjul area. So sometimes when I'm in a dilemma, in solving problems, I would contact him to help me. So that night he called me.
Call a spade, Mr. Mbai. He had lots of connections.
He was my informer.
He was your informant.
That's right.
Good. Was this the parliamentary, was this supposed to be a meeting of Parliament in June in 1995? That's what you think, what you're talking about?
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about.
And by the meeting you were referring to, where Mr. Cisse was to deliver this report, it was not cabinet but Parliament, correct? All right, thank you very much. So your informer or your informant gave you information that night about something he saw, correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us what he told you?
Now, on the phone, he said to me, I have seen a Mercedes-Benz, black in color, that looks like the ones that the ministers have, driving towards Jambur, followed by a Land Rover, a blue-colored, dark blue-colored Land Rover. And they have passed Sukuta, and they are driving towards Tanje. Now, he said he was...
Where?
Towards Jambur. Proceed. Actually, he said he was skeptical as to why should that happen at that time of the night, and that was the reason why he called to inform me. So I thanked him. I said, okay, that's good. Thank you very much. You know, I will bear this in mind. So the following morning...
At this stage, did that information mean anything to you? Did it mean much to you?
It meant a lot.
At that time in the night?
It meant a lot to me because I could not understand a minister's vehicle followed by a Land Rover, because what he told me was the Land Rover looks like the one that was allocated to Edward Singate. That was the information he gave me in our telephone conversation. So I was wondering as to why should Edward's vehicle be following a minister's vehicle at that time of the night going towards Jambur.
Well, why would that raise eyebrows at that stage? Edward was a minister. Edward was allocated that Land Rover. And ministers also had Mercedes-Benzes. It could have been an Edward entourage going somewhere.
Well, that could be true, but that time of that time of the night.
So
that was my problem.
Okay.
Because this is something that he could have done during the daytime, but I could not understand.
So your main issue was not about the vehicles involved, but the timing of that event.
Exactly. That was my problem.
Okay. Proceed, please.
Yes. So the following morning I went to work, and then there was speculations spreading like wildfire that Kuru's vehicle had an accident on the way to Jambur, that the vehicle knocked on a bridge and then caught fire, and the minister was burned within the vehicle. He was trapped in the vehicle and was burned within the vehicle. So my mind went to my conversation with Cham. Straight away I knew it must have been a foul play. So when I had that, others were saying, there was also information that this guy was killed by the junta.
All at the same time?
Yes. These were saying it was, others were saying accident, others were saying he was murdered by the junta. And what I actually believe was that he was murdered, because I thought the motive for his murder could have been what he wanted to reveal in Parliament, and they never wanted him to do that. And to quieten him, the only thing they could do is to kill him. Because if they had dismissed him from his job, he could have still contacted the media and say it.
So you're saying that sacking him was not a durable solution.
At
They
all.
resorted to silencing him permanently.
Permanently. That was exactly what I thought was what happened. So the day that the remains of Kuro was brought to was to be postmortem, then I went to the hospital to witness the postmortem examination.
Was that normal?
Yes, it was normal.
Was
It
that part of
definitely
your
normal.
responsibility?
Yes, exactly. It was part of my responsibility. I just went to the hospital, and on arrival at the hospital, I saw Peter Singate there. I found him there. Then
Which Peter Singate are you referring to?
Peter Singate, the brother of the other Singate, I don't know. He was in the army. Edward Singate's brother, Peter. He was also an army officer.
Good.
Then I found him at the hospital, and then his hand was fully bandaged as he was protecting a wound or concealing something, because there was also information that he got burnt while the vehicle was being burnt at the bush there. People were saying about that. So when I saw this, then deliberately,
Where in the hospital did you see
At the
Peter?
mortuary.
At the mortuary.
Yes, at the mortuary.
At the time, where were the remains of Mr.
they
Sisi?
just brought the remains out of the mortuary on a trolley. And then there were two doctors. One of the doctors was Dr. Sise, said to be an uncle to Kuro. That was what I heard them say at the hospital at that particular time. But then they were taking the remains to this unit, X-ray unit. From what I heard them say, they wanted to X-ray the remains of Kuro, and they were going towards the X-ray unit. Then I looked at Peter deliberately in the face, and I deliberately said, "This must be a foul play. This is not an accident. The accident must have been a frame-up, but this is definitely a foul play."
Did he say anything?
He did not say anything, but I saw in his face that he didn't like what I said. It was manifested on his face.
How?
See,
How was it manifested?
what happened is, the inner thoughts of any person in things like that would always manifest. This is psychological. It will always manifest on the part. Somebody who is unhappy, if you look at him in the face, you know he's not happy.
So by the expression on his face, you realize that he did not take too kindly to what you said.
That's right. Exactly. That was what happened. So when I saw that, I just decided to go back to my office. I did not wait to witness the post-mortem. I returned to my office and decided to go and visit the scene where the accident took place. Now, I must say here that I was never given instructions by anybody whosoever to investigate into this matter. Nobody asked me to do it. I took it upon myself to do it by virtue of my position as CMC. I was mandated to do it. And that was the reason I was doing it. I was doing it single-handedly. So when I went to the scene, then what I discovered was that the number plate of the vehicle was detached from the rear of the vehicle. It wasn't there. But then I was able to see that the place that was occupied by the number plate was not affected by the fire. The paint was still shining. So I thought maybe it could have been an afterthought of whoever might have detached it to disguise the identity of the vehicle. That was what I thought. Until this morning, when I had Mr. Bojang testifying that he was the one who detached the number plate. What for? I don't know. He said he took it to Banjul and placed it somewhere, which obviously I could not understand as a detective. You are collecting evidence. The evidence that you are collected, you don't take care of it, because he was saying we had no, I think, exhibit store, but a number plate of a vehicle. You don't even need to put it in an exhibit store. An important number. They could have just put it somewhere at the corner in his office.
That aside, did you see what else that is remarkable did you notice on that vehicle?
Well, apart from the number plate, when I saw that it was detached, it was nowhere to be seen, and I thought, as I just said, that it could have been done to disguise the identity of the vehicle. You see, like number plates for vehicles, they are very, very important.
Of course, that is the identity
For identical
of the vehicle.
purposes.
But
you see,
Mr. Mbai,
yes.
we are working within a particular time set. Okay. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, that's all right. That's
I know that you have strong views about what you want to say regarding the number plate, but it suffices for now to establish the fact that the number plate wasn't there. And as a result of that, you thought that the identity of the vehicle was now being disguised. But that aside, what else did you notice on the vehicle or about the vehicle?
Well, what I can say here is that that accident was a make-up.
It was what?
It was a make-up. It was a frame-up. It wasn't an actual accident, really. You see, because by looking at what happened, you see, it was at a bridge, a small bridge. And at the two edges of the bridge, you have a wall, a small wall, maybe to protect vehicle from going over. And that was the wall that they exactly put the vehicle, like the driver accidentally bumped into that wall. And that was the cause of the vehicle catching fire.
Did you see any dents on the vehicle?
There were no dents on the vehicle, actually, apart from the front of the vehicle, which was put at that wall. That's the only dent I saw on the vehicle.
So your testimony is that, as far as you can recall, 25 years ago, there were no dents on that vehicle?
No dents at all. At all.
What else did you notice on the vehicle?
Well, that's all that I...
Was it burnt?
Because the moment I saw...
Was it burnt?
Huh?
Was it burnt?
It was burnt, totally. Totally. Every part of the vehicle was affected by the fire, except where that number plate was detached.
From what you have seen, do you think that the impact that vehicle could have had on that concrete or brick or block slab, do you think that impact could have been sufficient to set that vehicle on fire?
No, sir. No.
Why do you say so?
Because I have seen people bump into things more seriously than what had happened with that one, and there was no fire. And again, considering the information given to me the previous night by Mr. Cham, so obviously I thought actually this was just a frame-up. It wasn't an accident at all. Putting all these things, making all these deductions of what happened. Then, from there, I decided to continue my investigations. I wanted to start from the airport because that was where everything began. So as an investigator, I said I should start from the airport. So I went to the airport. When I came back, then I was given information by one of my senior officers called Mr. Sane. He is now late. Then he was at the parade ground on that day. And what he told me was that...
On which day?
The day of when Yahya Jammeh was leaving the country, flying to somewhere, I don't know. They went to see him off. So he said Kuru parked his vehicle, and then there were two other vehicles that blocked him. One of the vehicles parked in front of his, and the other one was parked behind, at the back of his vehicle. So there was no way that he could have got out of that corner to drive away. So
were you informed?
Yes, I was informed.
Whose vehicles were parked in front and behind?
Yankuba's vehicle was parked in front.
Yankuba who?
Yankuba Ture. And then the vehicle of Edward Singate was parked behind.
You have established earlier on that Edward Singate was a member of the junta. You met him the first day you went to State House.
That's right.
This Yankuba Ture you're talking about, Who is he, or who was he at the time?
Yankuba, when I went to the State House, he wasn't there. At that time, he was.
But what position did he occupy as at the time?
Later, I knew he was part of the junta after my visit to the State House.
And did he ultimately or later occupy any position in government?
He was the Minister of Local Government and Lands.
Okay, thank you.
He was the Minister of Local Government and Lands. In fact, the day that I went to look for President, I forgot to write this. Yankuba, this Mr. Turo Jaune arrived in my presence. I was at the State House on that day. Then Yankuba came up to him and asked for his vehicle. Then Turo pointed to his vehicle where he parked it. Then Yankuba asked the driver to come with the vehicle. When he came, Turo was arrested at that moment, put into his own vehicle and taken away. Later, I knew he was taken to Mile 2. How long he stayed in the Mile 2, I don't know. But from that day, he was taken to Mile 2. That happened in my presence. You see, that was the time I knew Yankuba also was somebody who was part of them. You see. So after all this thing had happened, I was still doing my investigation. Then from the information that I was given about what happened at the airport, Kuro Sise, the Minister of Finance, was the first to arrive at his vehicle. But then he had no choice, he had to wait. Otherwise he cannot go. So Yankuba and Edward arrived. When they arrived, then they spoke. What they discussed, nobody knows. It was only known to them, as far as I am concerned. Then Edward jumped into his vehicle. Kuro jumped into his vehicle. Yankuba joined Kuro Sise in his vehicle. And then Yankuba's vehicle was driven by somebody.
So, in a sense, your informant told you that when Kuro arrived, Kuro parked his car at some place at the airport.
Yes.
And Yankuba Toure's car was parked in front of Koro's car.
Exactly.
And Edward Singate's car was parked behind Koro's car, yes, making it almost impossible for Koro to leave without those cars or those obstacles being removed.
Exactly.
And
that's exactly what I'm saying, yes.
And thereafter, prior to departure, Koro Sise came back to his car, but he could not leave because of the fact that his car was blocked.
Exactly.
And your testimony is that later on Edward Singate and Yankuba Ture came.
Yes.
There was a conversation. Edward jumped into his own vehicle and Yankuba Ture left his own vehicle and joined Koro's vehicle. That is your testimony.
That is my testimony.
And what happened after that?
And they left. So I returned to my office. 2 days later, I was still doing my investigations. The IGP called me. That was Mr. Jibril Juf, to his office. And then he wanted to know the position of the case. What evidence did I gather regarding the murder of the minister? I was reluctant to give him any information because of the fact that he never instructed me to investigate, nor did any other person instructed me to investigate. So I was skeptical as to why he was asking me that question. You see, I was suspicious. Maybe, as I thought, those people at the State House might have wanted to know what I was doing about the case, and they cannot ask me directly. They might wanted information from me through the IGP. That was what I thought. And that was why I was reluctant to give him any information. I told him, well, I don't know anything, sir. Then what he told me was, in the event the junta want to know the progress of this case, what do we tell them? You are the CMC. I said to him, sir, from what I know, I don't think these people will ever ask you progress of this case. I don't think so. Be you here for the next 10 years, nobody will ask you about it. That was exactly what I told him. Then I walked out and returned to my office. The following day, he called me and said, Yankuba Toure wants you in his office.
Was that an order or was it a suggestion?
Of course,
or
it was
information?
an order. It was definitely an order. So which I obeyed. I went to his office at the Quadrangle.
You went to whose office?
Yankuba Toure's office at the Quadrangle. When I entered the office, he was bent on reading or writing something. Then he raised his head, looked at me for some times.
Like,
Maybe-
as in how many minutes? or
Maybe
seconds?
1-2 minutes. He was looking at me.
During that period, was he smiling at you?
At all, he wasn't. He wasn't smiling at me at all. At all.
In as far as you're concerned, what message was being conveyed through that look of his on this, through the expression on his
Well,
face?
actually, his countenance, as far as I am concerned, showed me that something wrong must have happened, because I saw in his face that he was kind of not happy with me. That was what I was able to detect.
Was his look friendly or was it
It
menacing?
wasn't friendly, of course, not at all. Not friendly at all.
Okay, it's not friendly.
At all.
Was it menacing? Was it threatening?
Not, I wouldn't say threatening, actually. Not threatening, because there was nothing threatening about his countenance on that day. But definitely, he was not happy with me. That was what I could have seen. That's the message I saw in his face.
A message of disagreement with something.
Exactly.
Did he say anything to you?
No, he just looked at me for 1-2 minutes and said, it's okay, you can go back. He did not tell me anything, absolutely nothing. He just looked at me and said, you can go back to your office. And
What message did you get from that?
that I should prepare myself to quit. Because what I thought was, well, something is wrong somewhere, and the tendency is I might be sent home. That was exactly what I thought. So I returned to my office. The following day, Bai Nyasba, a cadet officer at that time, came into my office, quoting his exact words. He said to me, boss, I said yes. He said, 2 days go tomorrow. Those were his exact words.
What did you understand him to mean by
That 2 people will be sent home tomorrow.
Oh, this sending home thingy, what does it mean?
That you'll be sacked. Sacking people and sending them home.
Proceed.
So when he said this, I asked him, I hope I am not one of these 2 that are supposed to go home tomorrow. He said, no, sir. No, you are not one of them. Then when he walked out of my office, I decided to pack all my belongings, my personal belongings.
Why
and
did
put
you
them
do
aside.
that? Why did you do that?
Because I suspected that the 2 that he said were to go home, the next day, I must have been one of them. That was exactly what I thought, and that was the reason why I packed my personal belongings. I did not stop at doing that. I also took a paper and wrote my handing over. When I finished writing my handing over, I signed the handing over officer's column, and then the taking officer's signature column, I left it blank. So after work, I went home. When I returned the following morning, it was on a Friday, the IG called me to his office. When I entered the IG's office, he said to me, I'm sorry, Mr. Mbai, we've got message from the State House that they no longer needed your services, that you should go home. I asked him, did they tell you what I have done? He said, no. So meaning I have not done anything wrong? He said, well, they did not tell me anything wrong that you have done. So I said, that's well and good. So that was how I packed up. Then he said, go and write your handing over. I said, I have done that already, sir. When did you do it? I said, yesterday. So you knew you were going to be sent home. Well, I said, I was hinted. I was indirectly hinted. I told him what happened in my office with Bai Nyasba. I explained that to him, and he understood. I said that was the reason why I wrote my handing over note yesterday.
Were you told the reasons for your dismissal?
In fact, I was not even given a letter. I was just asked to go home. It was 2 weeks later, that a police constable brought my letter to my home.
Do you recall what the letter said?
The letter said it was, it was a numb. That kind of letter was actually given to anybody who was sent home. That I have been directed, it was an executive directive.
Have been directed to inform you that your services have been terminated.
Terminated. Executive directive.
Full stop.
That your services are terminated. Full stop. Nothing more, nothing less. So I just went home. Then it was 10 months later. Then the IG sent to call me to his office. So when I went to his office, then FRI Jame was, what at that time the IGP. Then I was recalled and reinstated. Then my office was restored to me as CMC. So after 2 days, he called me, the IG called me to his office and said, look, the reason for your reinstatement is because we have a murder case at the terminal where a Fuller man was killed and his money was taken away, and it's becoming a problem for us to solve that problem. So we had advised to call you back, and that is why you are here. But it seems you are not doing anything. I said, well, it would be impossible for me to do anything because one person if one person is being looked for by the police, the army, the police intervention unit, they all were in half-die looking for one person. I said, you cannot see that person because knowing how half-die is, you will never be able to arrest that guy. Ask these people to go back to barracks. What he told me was that the then Minister of Justice, who was Fatou Bensouda, gave them the information that the boy was hidden somewhere in Afghanistan. I said, I don't think so, sir. This man must have left Banjul. He must have left Banjul. He is no longer in Banjul. Then he said, how do you know that? I said, because of the way you people are looking at him. If you take a whole bunch of people, 30 people from the different units of the security looking for one person, so obviously it would be difficult for you to get him.
But up to the time of your dismissal, were you aware of any investigations being conducted with regards to the Korosise case?
No, sir. I was not aware of any investigation.
Were you aware that one of your subordinates, Mr. Bojang, was investigating the case?
I was not, sir. Definitely I was not.
I
was supposed to be aware, and I was supposed to lead that investigation, but I was never aware that there is another group investigating that matter. I was not aware.
So you were surprised to hear Mr. Bojang's testimony this morning?
I was very much surprised when I heard him say that he led a unit to investigate into this matter. He himself said here that I was the CMC at the time. I heard him say that in his testimony here.
Were you also, or would you also surprise you to note that Fode Barry was also investigating the matter?
Well, with regards to Fode, I would say, even if I am told that he was doing the investigation into that matter, I would not believe it. I don't know anything about it. I have not seen him doing it, and we never discuss it. And if they say he was investigating it, well, I don't think I can believe that. Because he was engaged in some other things. They were engaged on this investigation of these special investigation cases.
Wasn't this case special enough?
It was more than special. It was the most serious case that happened at that time, in those days. It was a very, very serious case.
In a nutshell, from your experience as a crime scene investigator who have visited the scene and have seen the remains of Mr. Korosise at the mortuary, and also as a person who has done some investigations about the matter and have received some information from your informants and have seen some of the alleged perpetrators, what is your take on what happened to Usman Korosise?
So my take is very simple here. After having done my deductions on all the information that I gathered pertaining to this particular event, this particular episode, my take is that definitely Kuro was killed. It was never, and the motive for his killing was what he wanted to disclose in Parliament. And that was the reason these people quietened him. Otherwise, there was nothing they could have done to quieten Kuro, to silence him, other than what they have done to him. So my take is he was killed. He was definitely murdered.
From the information you gathered, who do you think had the motive to kill him?
Starting from the airport, he was blocked by two people, Edward and Yankuba. When he came, they had a discussion with him. After the discussion, Yankuba joined his vehicles. He had his own vehicle. He decided to leave his vehicle and join Kuro's vehicle. And then Edward was in his vehicle and they drove together and went. In the night, I was given information about what Cham told me, which I narrated here. So putting all these things together, obviously, you will come to conclusion that this man was definitely killed by Yankuba and Edward. Maybe some other people might have been involved, but my take is that it was done by no other person other than Yankuba and Edward. If there are other people, they should have been, they could have been the leaders in whatever had happened.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have no further questions for the witness. We'll give you a rendezvous for some date in the future when we would call you to discuss the other issues as I have intimated earlier. Thank you very much, Mr. Witness, for answering my questions. Mr. Chair, the witness is yours.
Thank you very much, Counsel, and thank you very much, Mr. Mbai, for your testimony. Counsel, did you arrange with the witness for him to make any concluding remarks now, or you rather
no,
wait
later.
Okay.
He has a whole lot more to say, Mr. Chair.
Yes, indeed, he does, clearly. Commissioners, any questions now, or you'd want to wait a bit later? Fine. That is not it. Thank you all very much. We would see you Monday morning. We don't meet on Fridays. Counsel, is that okay?
Yes.
Splendid.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned. See you Monday morning.